So I'm from Sheffield originally, and was baptised as a child in the Church of England, but really as an older child with my mother, started to attend church, and the parish I went to was kind of in the Catholic tradition in the Church of England, and so the clergy that I met were really, really good examples of what it is to be disciples and to call others to faith. And it was there I learnt a kind of Catholic faith in the Eucharist. It's there I was taught to pray the Rosary. And I'm very grateful for that experience. Some people can be a little bit bitter that they weren't born Catholics. Well, it was that experience that enabled me to become a Catholic, because the thing that really moved me was experiencing the universality of the Church and the fact that a Catholic faith in the Eucharist was held universally by the Catholic Church. And that's not really the case in the Church of England. So that really drew me to becoming a Catholic, and I was received into the Church in the sixth form when I was about 16 and a half. And then went on to university, and I studied theology at university in Leeds, and from there approached the diocese about a vocation to the priesthood, and went to the English College in Rome for 6 years, did my studies, was ordained a priest, worked in the diocese of Leeds very happily, in parishes and in chaplaincies. I taught in a seminary for a time, and then I came back to the diocese under a new bishop to work in evangelisation. And when he was moved to a new job, I became the administrator for 2 years. And then after that, I found myself receiving a phone call from the nuncio to say I'd been made an auxiliary bishop in Westminster, which was a shock, to say the least.
I mean, it's an interesting. Just to go back to your conversion, it's an interesting kind of age, because often people will maybe at university, but at sixth form, what was it that kind of made you take that decision, and in that moment?
I think it was the influence of people around me, especially the clergy that I knew, many of whom went on to become Catholics and were ordained Catholic priests. So there was something in the air, I think, about an openness towards the Catholic Church. And I had a very positive experience with the Maltfriscans, which are a Catholic charismatic group based in Maltby. And the priest there, Father May, I used to go on a Friday night. They had a praise and worship and adoration and prayers for healing. And that moved me deeply. And that was really my first experience of Eucharistic adoration, in a context that was very, very lively and where faith was tangible. So although that's not, as it were, representative of the whole Catholic Church, it gave me something of a Catholic spirit and a desire to belong to something that was, at the time, seemed quite exotic, and almost otherworldly. But it drew me into something that was new for me. And that led me on a journey, quite a simple journey. There's nothing complex about it. But I remember experiencing different senses of the Eucharist in the Church of England. And I thought, well, it's either true or it's not. It can't be a symbol and really be the body and blood of the Lord Jesus. So it was to the Catholic Church that I was drawn. And my mum followed me eventually, and I received her into the church after I was ordained a priest. So we've had a kind of a journey together, really. But it was something that was an evolution, for which I'm really, really grateful.
What kind of period was this?
So this would have been in the late 80s, late 80s, yeah.
So sort of during John Paul II's most vigorous phase. Was he somebody that you kind of knew about, looked
enormously,
to?
Enormously. The parish church that I went to had a picture of John Paul II and Robert Runcie in the porch. And it was one of those Anglican churches that used the Roman Missal.
Right.
So we used to pray for John Paul, our Pope, and then the Anglican bishop. So, he was a very familiar figure. And of course, in 1982, that visit, I had chickenpox. There was a parish trip from the Anglican parish, but I couldn't go to York. I had chickenpox. But I had an enormous poster of him in my bedroom, long before becoming a Catholic. And again, there was someone who spoke powerfully and simply in a way that was so attractive about the person of Christ and life in the church and mission.